I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doo. What is going on, everyone? Happy Wednesday. It is officially hump day, and I'm excited to be here. It's almost Friday. Shout out to everyone watching on Rockfin and everyone watching on YouTube as well as Twitter. I want to give a huge shout out because a lot of you don't know about this yet, but you're going to hear more about it in the next couple of days. So for those of you who are new, my podcast is affiliated with the Fred Hampton Leftist podcast. So Fred Hampton Leftist Network, Sabs podcast is a part of that. We have a general strike summit that is coming up. That is actually next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a 3-day event. We have some awesome guest speakers. Guys, we're going to teach you and educate you about why we need to have general strike in this country. We're going to talk to you about activism. We're going to talk to you about mutual aid, co-ops, worker co-ops. We're going to talk to you about unions and what this all means in reference to a general strike. So I'll be giving you updates about that as we go throughout the week. I want to give quick shout outs to everyone in the chat. What's going on? Dan O'Neill says, Princess got my vote. That is awesome. Thanks so much. I'm sure Princess really appreciates that. We're going to talk about that Virginia election results. What's going on? Carmen Iglesias says, what time is this supposed to start? It starts right now, Carmen, 7 p.m. What's going on? Yin Yang says, I wonder if Sabby will decide to get Princess on a live stream to interview her and discuss the future of the Liberation Party. So yeah, I actually interviewed her a couple of weeks ago. So definitely check out that interview on my channel. I interviewed her actually right after she had that viral video on Twitter. So definitely check that out. What's going on? AOHTO6 says, Jimmy Dore attacked. Must be a day that ends with the letter Y. Jimmy seems to only get attacked on those days. That's a good point. Shout out to LT the Third, F the Rav, good vibes. All right, what's going on? Hannah G says, I know they didn't come after Professor Wolff. Yes, they did. And we're going to get into that. Shout out to you, Arturo. Always glad to see you as well. Greetings, Michelita. She says, just here to get some Sabby. What's up? What's going on, Lawrence? Doobie-doo. Always a pleasure to see you as well. Greetings, Valerie. She says, hi, chatters. What's going on, Shayar? Good evening to all Sabby misfits. Shout out to Eric Thomas, who's a Sabby member. He says, Anderson Cooper says Dems are too far left. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, that is hilarious. They just don't get it. They just don't get it. What's going on, Robert Hutchings? He says, greeting, comrades. I hope you are all safe and well. Shout out to Venom 662222 says, Sabs. What's up? What's up? What's going on, Little Rock Elevators? I guess Obama, Biden, and Harris is blaming the voters in Virginia for the loss. And they would do that. We're going to get into that tonight, too. We're going to talk all about that. So, welcome to Sabby Sabs Podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I mentioned this earlier, but Sabby Sabs Podcast is a part of the Fred Hampton Leftist Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Roundtable and Fridays for the Sabby Sabs Show. And you can catch me here Monday through Friday, minus Thursday, because I'm on the Roundtable on Thursdays. So let's go ahead and get started with today's news. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, here we go. So tonight we are talking about Dems lose Virginia. Why this is not a surprise to me. I predicted this, so I am not shocked. I'm going to go deep into that. Richard Wolff and Jimmy Dore attacked. Yes, we're going to talk about that. That happened recently. And a little bit of local news for those of you who live in Massachusetts. Michelle Wu wins. So we're going to get into those stories tonight. So here we go. Let's do the damn thing. Let me stop sharing my screen and pop out. I think I'm going to start with Dems lose Virginia. We're going to start with that story first because I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. I knew that there was a strong chance that Dems would lose this race, the governor race in Virginia. Now, some of you saw a couple weeks ago, Princess Blanding was on here. She was also running for governor of Virginia. She was running as a third party candidate with the Liberation Party. She did not get as much coverage as she should have gotten. Mainstream media pretty much tried to pretend like she wasn't even in this race. Surprise, surprise. They put all their bank, all their money on Terry, the Democrat candidate. Terry lost. So now Republicans now have control of Virginia again. Now I'm seeing people like Joe Manchin say on social media and in interviews, he can't believe this happened. He's really surprised. I'm like, really? You're really surprised? Some of you may not remember this, but I seem to remember when Virginia was a red state. It wasn't that long ago. I think Dems became a little too comfortable counting on Virginia to be blue, thinking that it would stay blue. And this is a wake-up call. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Dems are in trouble come 2022 and come 2024. Now I'm going to go to this article that talks a little bit about the election. And this is really interesting. I want you guys to hear this. It says Republican Glenn Youngkin wins Virginia's governor race, dealing Democrats a blow. Oh, yeah, he dealt them something, all right. So this is Youngkin. He's the one that won. Let me go further down. So here is the election results. So you can see here that Glenn received 50.9% of the votes. Terry received 48.4%, and Princess Blanding received 0.7%. Now, I already know what mainstream media is going to try to say. I heard some of the talking points earlier today. I'm going to get into that. But don't be surprised if they try to blame the people who voted third party, who voted for Princess Blanding. If they try to say that 0.7% could have gone to Terry, could have, but if people wanted to vote for him, they would have. That's the thing that kills me about third party candidates. They always try to blame them for the reason that Democrats are losing. Democrats are losing because they suck, because they're not doing the things that they run on. They're not helping the American people, and they are no longer the party of the working class people. They sold us out a long time ago. Let's be real. So let's get into this article. So going down here, I actually want to show you this map actually. So this map shows you how people voted. And this is not a surprise to me. I lived in Virginia before. The majority of the state is a red state, even though it has gone blue in elections in the past couple of years. The majority of the state is red. Your blue areas, as you can imagine, tend to be closer to the cities. So you have Nova, which is known as Northern Virginia. That's right outside of DC. That is this area right up here at the top. That includes Alexandria, Arlington, Virginia, Fairfax, that whole shebang. Then you have this area here, which is Henrico County. I believe that is closer to Richmond. And then you have this area here, which is blue, and this is in southeastern Virginia. That is actually where some of my relatives live. So there's a heavy military population there, just FYI. But let's go down into the article. So it shows you, you can see the numbers here, how people voted. All right, here we go. We're going to skip his speech. We don't have time for that. We do not have time for that. Youngkin's victory ends a long losing streak for Virginia Republicans who haven't notched a statewide election since 2009. So if you guys remember, Obama ran in 2008. Virginia turned blue for Obama. However, it follows the relatively recent trend of Virginians in odd year elections voting against the party in the White House. The win for the GOP could also be a sign of what is to come in 2022 midterm elections when the balance of power in Congress is up for grabs and 36 states hold gubernatorial elections. Youngkin's victory could be a template for other Republicans. The former private equity CEO and first-time candidate drew ruckus crowds in the closing stages of the race by channeling conservative outrage over public education. So they go into the whole story about critical race theory and how some parents didn't like that, all that jazz. You guys know that whole story. So then we go further down and it says, now this is the key, you guys, based on early returns, turnout for the race appears to have been higher than most recent Virginia race for governor, which was in 2017. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Oh, it is pretty big. Oh, wow. It's like really big. Can you guys see? Oh, you can still see it. And I want to point this out again because I want you to hear this one more time. This is very important because when people try to come to you and tell you that people didn't come out to vote, that is BS. Listen to what it says here. Now, this is coming from NPR. Based on early returns, turnout for the race appears to have been higher than most recent Virginia race for governor in 2017. More people came out this time around. So when Democrats and when MSNBC and CNN try to tell you that people didn't come out to vote, you can go back to this episode and go right back to this point where I told you that the turnout was higher. All right. Now, let's go further down here. They do mention Princess Blanding. They said Princess Blanding, an outspoken advocate of criminal justice reform, was a third-party candidate on the ballot. That's pretty much all they say about her. They don't go further than that, which pisses me off, of course. Now, let's go further down here. Youngkin's win restores some power that Republicans lost in a state that has turned increasingly blue. I just showed you the map. The majority of the state is red. Democrats still hold both of the U.S. Senate seats and the majority of the state's congressional delegation. So let me go down here. Youngkin had an issue with critical race theory. That was a big issue. Here, a lot of people coming out to support him here. Youngkin made reopening schools an early part of his platform when he emerged from relative obscurity to announce his candidacy in January of this year. So that was one of the things that he ran on. Get this. He spent $20 million of his own money on his campaign. Again, this guy is rich. He's rich. McAuliffe tried to paint Youngkin as an extremist who is using racist dog whistles. So again, this is one of the things I think that Democrats try to do and they really don't succeed with. They tried to do this with Trump and Hillary during 2016, just basically saying, oh, Trump is saying racist things and you shouldn't vote for him because of this. And I get some of the things that Trump was saying was just flat out ridiculous. Some of the things he was saying was racist. But Democrats seem to use this a lot when it comes to Republicans. They always want to say one of the things they use against them is the reason why you should vote for the Democrat and not the Republican is because the Republicans are racist. That logic is not working anymore. It didn't work against Trump when he ran against Hillary, and it did not work in this race in Virginia either. More people still came out to support the Republican candidate. So let me go down here. All right, so here, Rich Meager, an associate professor of political science at Randolph-Macon College, I know where that is, said national Republicans would likely use Youngkin's campaign as a template in next year's elections, given the enthusiasm it generated. Democrats, he said, needed to reevaluate their strategy of painting all Republicans with a Trump brush and talk more about their policies and achievements. Let me pop out. So once again, Democrats tried to use, you should not vote for him because of racism, because Republicans are racist. And I told you it has backfired. And yet people like Joy Reid still do not get it, because this is what she had to say. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And this just really makes me cringe. And I'm going to call this out. MSNBC's Joy Reid with dangerous rhetoric that'll get Republicans hurt. Republicans are dangerous. I'm not even going to read the rest of this. I'm going to play the video for you because I want you to hear it from her yourself. I think, again, they're trying to make it seem like all Republicans are racist and everybody that voted for Trump is racist, and that is not true, and it is causing Democrats elections. They don't get it. So here we go. Let me mute my mic.
They would have to be willing to say what you have said on your show. I think we've all said a version of it. You have to be willing to vocalize that these Republicans are dangerous, that this isn't a party that's just another political party that disagrees with us on tax policy, that at this point, they're dangerous. They're dangerous to our national security, because stoking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hardcore stuff. It leads to the January 6th stuff, because if people are tolerant of it in your party, they're tolerant of the soft racism, it's a really short trip to get to the January 6th insurrectionist place. And we're not.
Okay, I'm about to correct her on this. Here is where she is wrong. When we talk about soft racism, I like to call it covert racism. That's actually something liberals tend to do. I live in a blue state. There's a lot of racism here in Massachusetts. And most of the time, it is covert racism from liberals. People who have Black Lives Matter signs in their yard. People who say that everybody should be equal. People who say that, yes, gay people should be able to get married. That's who I get this soft racism from. So it was really interesting to me that she tried to put that with Republicans, because I usually see that happen with liberals, that covert racism. And for those who don't know, covert racism means that, unlike overt racism, it is not as obvious. It can be mistaken for something else. I see that a lot in the Northeast. In the South, when I lived in the South, I saw more overt racism. So the fact that she's trying to say that Republicans have this soft racism, which leads to events that we saw on January 6th, let's be very clear here. Not everybody who was out there on January 6th was white. Go back and look at the videos. So what's the excuse there? What's her reasoning there? You guys got to pay attention to these things. Again, they are trying to use the excuse that you should vote for Democrats and not Republicans because Republicans are racist. Well, I have news for you. Democrats can be racist too. Don't think that just because someone has a D in front of their name that they're not racist. We have President Joe Biden, who sat there with racist Strom Thurmond and wrote those crime bills, which disproportionately affected Black people in this country. But because he's a Democrat, they told us to give him a pass. It is not just, this is not a Republican thing. And they continue to try to push this rhetoric. They continue to try to push this narrative that it's Democrats are the good ones and Republicans are the bad ones. And they use race a lot of times to divide us. They'll never call that out. They'll never do it. Anderson Cooper has done it. Joy Reid has done it. And it's not right. And I know people who are Republican. I know people who are Democrat. People who are independent. And to be honest with you, a lot of people are getting tired of it. Now they want to say that the vote for Terry, the reason why people voted for him over, the reason why people voted for, shoot, I forgot the dude's name. Hold on. I forgot his name that quick. Youngkin. The reason why people voted for Youngkin over Terry is because of racism. But if that is the case, then why, I'm going to share my screen here. Why did they vote for a black lieutenant governor? Anybody? Somebody? Anybody? Lieutenant Governor-elect of Virginia, Winsome Spears. We're going to have safer neighborhoods, safer communities, and our children are going to get a good education. Let me see if I can pull this back. Guys, do you see the buffoonery? Echo J says, oops. I mean, what? This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. That doesn't make any sense. Let's hear what she had to say. Let me see if it'll play. I don't know why. I think the video doesn't want to play. I don't know what they did to that video. But anyway, this is the woman who just won lieutenant governor in Virginia. She's black. And she's also a Republican. Let me pop out. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Gamer for Life said, I hope Princess Blanding keeps fighting. Me too. 100%. 100%. Franny says, you're so right, Sabby. They have no other, they know that works for them. They know that getting Anderson Cooper and Joy Reid on national television to tell people that the reason why the Republicans won is because of racism, they know that works. And they forget to point out that, oh, by the way, they also voted for the black woman for lieutenant governor. The reason why Democrats are failing, the reason why they lost this election is because of a couple of things. One, they continue to believe that pushing the more moderate candidate is the way to go, is the way to win. They thought that with Hillary versus Trump. They smeared Bernie Sanders and they said, we need to push Hillary. She's the moderate option. She's the safe choice. And then she lost to Trump, a reality TV star. Because again, people saw through it. Even those attack ads that Hillary Clinton had saying, would you want your children to have a president that says things like this? That didn't work. It doesn't work anymore. And they still have not learned from that. They are still preaching that same old, tired rhetoric. Another reason why Dems are losing is because they still are not helping the working class people in this country. The Democratic Party used to be the party that was for the working class. What happened to that? They sold out to Wall Street. They gave us Obama, Hillary Clinton. They sold out to Big Pharma. They sold out to all these corporations. They're not for the working class anymore. And people see through it because you see, we had a pandemic come through. A lot of people lost their jobs. We saw a lot of businesses close. So people are no longer buying into that theory that they try to force upon us, that if you vote for Republican, you must be racist. Another reason he lost this race, Mr. Terry, because he still tried to go with the same logic: Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, orange man bad. It doesn't work anymore. Because even though Trump is gone, people see that their situation in their lives is still not any better. For some people, their situation, their financial situation is worse. Things have not improved for working class people. Why would they continue to vote for Democrats? But no, what did they say? Put Joe Biden in. He's going to turn the country around. He's going to heal the soul of America. He's going to bring people together. No. Here we are. It's been a little over a year since this pandemic happened. People are still struggling. Why would they continue to vote for the same people? Are you kidding me? Now, what's really unfortunate, I interviewed Lee Carter a couple months ago. That was in the early stages of my podcast. Lee Carter was running for governor of Virginia at that time. Lee Carter was a socialist that served in the Virginia House of Delegates. He ran as a socialist when he won that position. But unfortunately, Terry came with big money. Terry went on, Lee did not. Because again, Democrats said that you need to go with someone that is a little bit more moderate. And they're still trying to do that. And they don't get it. You don't have to be a leftist to understand and identify with the policies and issues that working class people are fighting for in this country. I know conservatives that think everyone should have health care. But they keep trying to divide us among red and blue. And I keep telling everybody that the issue is class. And so now you have working class white people, working class black people, working class Latinos, working class Asian people in this country who are starting to see, you know what? I've been voting for Democrats all these years. I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. My life has not improved. Let me go with something different. And this is a problem for Democrats. And they're not really trying to do their best at fixing it, because the narrative that they continue to preach on CNN and MSNBC is that it is always the Republicans' fault. They don't look at the Democratic Party and evaluate what the Democrats are doing wrong. They have lost the working class people. They're losing black people. Joe Biden's support from black voters has decreased and continues to decrease. So they know that they cannot win without the African American vote. So if black people don't come out and vote in 2022 and in 2024, Dems are screwed. The independents in this country, independents have increased with good reason. Paul Smith said, Sabby, it's also about race. Never forget that. And I understand the racial component to it as well. But the point that I was trying to make is that they're out there saying on CNN and on MSNBC that the reason why people voted for for Youngkin is because they're racist. It's because of racism. But they're not mentioning that those same people voted for the black woman for lieutenant governor. So what's the reasoning there? It's not always about race. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just because people are fed up. This is what happens when Democrats get comfortable and they think they have a state and they'll always have a state because it turned blue. How well did that work out for Democrats when Pennsylvania turned red? Watson says liberals simply differentiate themselves from conservatives they claim to oppose along upper middle class, petty bourgeois identity and cultural lines. And that is 100% true, Watson. It all comes down to class, you guys. Now, over this past week, I've told you guys about different class issues that have come up in the news. Joe Rogan's cringe take about paid parental leave. Again, the whole class issue came up because that's not something that he really needs. We were just talking last night about the squad not holding the line, not fighting for these issues, these things that we really need in this country. And again, class came up because a lot of these leftist commentators that we've spent years watching, they are millionaires, they are rich, and they are telling us to continue to donate to Justice Democrats. They are telling us that we need to give the squad more chance. Meanwhile, they have health care. They have paid vacation. They have the things that a lot of us are fighting for that we don't have. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to class. Gadir Osman said, cut the check. Let's cut it out. Let's do it. So you have to understand, people are frustrated. People are tired. Let's talk about another strategy that they did that did not work. I'm going to share my screen. In Virginia, they thought it would be a good idea to bring in someone who really gets on my nerves. They thought it would be a good idea to bring in Obama. Obama came to Virginia and said, we don't have time to be tired. Obama tries to jolt Virginia Dems at McAuliffe rally. So they brought in Barack Obama. They brought in Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden to Virginia to help Terry win. And when they call in Obama, usually that means you might be struggling a little bit. Now, it worked when they called in Obama to help out Joe Biden, to help him win this presidency. It worked when they asked Joe, they called out Joe Obama. Good Lord, my words are getting crisscrossed. It worked when they called out Obama to go to Georgia, to go speak to people in Georgia, to get them to vote for Warnock and Ossoff. It worked. But my thing is that sometimes it no longer works. And ladies and gentlemen, this was one of those times. Because you see, this time when they called in Obama to help a candidate win, it backfired. It did not work. I hate to say this, but honestly, when I heard this morning, a part of me just kind of like smiled. Because I feel like this is exactly what Democrats get. Because they have taken the working people in this country for granted. They think that bringing in Obama is going to get them what they need. And this time it did not work. They had to bring in all those people. Such a waste of time. Such a waste of time. And he still lost. But I'm no Joy Reid, so what do I know? Valerie said young people see through Obama. This is 100% true. I was telling people this the other night that some of my students, they're Gen Z. They are not buying into the two-party system, you guys. They are not fans of Obama. So like I said, Dems are in trouble. Shout out to Delthea Simmons for the super chat. But Obama is losing his charm. And without the evil warlock Trump to focus his magic, Obama couldn't cast his spell. There you go. Thanks so much for the super chat, Delthea. This is true. You know why? Because see, before, even people who probably didn't want to vote for Biden may have voted for Biden because they just wanted Trump gone. So it wasn't so much for some people that they really wanted Biden to win. For some people, it was just they wanted Trump out. But Trump's been gone now for a while, and people see that things still have not improved. People see it's not just the Republicans, it's the Democrats too. Echo J says Obama was preaching that take the crumbs and be happy sermon. Yeah, I played part of his speech. He gave a speech in New Jersey too. By the way, I'm going to look up those numbers because before I got on the stream, that race was really close. The New Jersey race for governor, by the way, really close. Obama spoke there too. And he tried to shame voters for not coming out to vote in 2016. Well, this is what happens when you guys don't come out to vote. You saw what happened. Trying to use fear tactics. I don't know if it's going to work in New Jersey, but right, like I said, before I got on this stream, it was very close. Shout out to Justin for the super chat. As a leftist and German major, my vote was based on Charlottesville. Thanks so much for the super chat, Justin. Thanks for the super chat, Delthea. Biden was a crowbar to unseat Trump. Absolutely. Thanks so much for the super chat. Absolutely. Like, if your only focus was, let's just get Trump out, and it doesn't really matter who we put in, that was part of the problem. Because see, now you can't blame Trump. Trump's not here anymore. So it's like, you can't continue to blame him. I'm going to share you something that RJ said, and this is from Trump. Speaking of Trump, here's what he had to say about this race. RJ said, truer words have never been spoken. So here's what Donald Trump had to say. He said, it is looking like Terry McAuliffe's campaign against a certain person named Trump has very much helped Glenn Youngkin. All McAuliffe did was talk Trump, 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 and he lost. What does that tell you? Fake news. I guess people running for office as Democrats won't be doing that too much longer. I didn't even have to go rally for Youngkin because McAuliffe did it for me. Thank you to the MAGA voters for turning out big. I don't agree with Trump on a lot of things, but he's right about that one. He's right about that one. Shout out to Emperor Forever. Prepare yourself for hot liberal takes blaming Russia for losing Sabrina for the next 3 years. Thanks so much for the super chat. They'll blame everybody but themselves. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the rest of these Democrat candidates, if you're going to run on Trump bad, you're probably going to lose too. People are done with it. See, you see what Trump said? He didn't even have to come out there and campaign for Youngkin. Terry did it for him. Isn't that interesting? Little Rock said, did Stacey Abrams went down there to Virginia to endorse Terry? Yes, she was there as well. Her, Obama, Biden, and Kamala. All 4 of them, and he still lost. I can't make this stuff up. I can't make this stuff up. Eric Thomas, who's a Sabby member, says, I still think we need to focus more on the money. Yeah, they're both corporate. Youngkin's corporate. Terry's corporate. This is why I highly encourage people to vote for Princess Blanding. She was third-party candidate. Grassroots. She didn't have any corporate backing. But these politicians, the ones running for office, the race between those two, they're both corporate. At the end of the day, you still lose, regardless of who you voted for between those two. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of blame to go around. I'm sure Obama, again, is going to come back and say, see, look what happens when you guys don't come out. And in turn, I would respond to him and say, see, look what happens when you give us crappy candidates and you don't help the working class people in this country. See what happens when you lie to us for years saying you're going to do things that you don't do. See what happens when you can't even give everybody health care in this country. You can't give people a decent living wage. Guys, I don't know if you know this, but Virginia is an expensive state. It's a part of the South, and the South typically has a lower cost of living than the Northeast, but Virginia is expensive. I know, I used to live there. Matter of fact, Robert said, yeah, they're blaming the Virginia race on the left. Damn self gone too far to the left. LOL. And it's one of those times where I wish I could just I don't know, sit across from Joy Reid, Anderson Cooper with these crazy talking points that they have and just say, when they start blaming the left, and just look at them and say, when are you going to start blaming the Democrats? When are you going to start blaming the Democratic Party instead of blaming people on the left? Maybe if you actually gave people these things that we're fighting for, you wouldn't have this problem. It's like enough is enough. Enough is enough. And so I'm not surprised that Dems lost Virginia. And I want you to pay close attention on the New Jersey race as well. I want you to pay close attention on all these. When we come into 2022, oh, you think it's hot now? Oh, just wait till 2022. Wait till we come into 2022 and see how things turn out. Because this is just the beginning. Wait till they start flipping seats. And I'm just going to look back and say, I told you so. You have a candidate run twice in this country on starting a revolution, on speaking for the working class people. And then the DNC and the mainstream media do everything they can to prevent people voting for him, to smear him. Now, Bernie's not perfect. I'm not proud of Bernie since Biden took office. No, because I feel like Bernie should have been fighting harder and not making excuses for Joe Biden. And he also has been saying that Joe Biden's doing a great job. But when he was running, he started something, because Bernie, he had a way of bringing people together that had it not been for Bernie, I don't think we would have been brought together. Just keeping it real. So I think that the Democratic Party assumed that since Bernie was out, Joe Biden was in, that those of us on the left, we would kind of just fall in line and eventually jump on that Biden train. And that's not happening the way they thought it would. You kidding me? You had someone go around this country saying we're going to start a revolution, and you thought we would just forget about that? No. Greg Bruce, who's a Sabby member, says, same old, same old. These Democrat oligarchs love losing to Republicans because of the tax cuts. There you go. And I said this before too. The Democratic Party, they would have rather had Trump win again than have Bernie win. Just keeping it real. Laura says, I seriously never imagined that being pro-peace, pro-cooperation, pro-choice, pro-F the greedy would be considered radical. I am not radical. I am compassionate. Well, Laura, welcome to America. Welcome to America. Bullshit Man said, now the DNC are talking about Pete Buttigieg for 2022. You know, the guy who was rewarded for cheating via shadow app, ha ha ha, in Iowa with a cabinet position. He's another one that's going to go down. They think that we'll come out for Pete too. We're not coming out for Pete. Are you kidding me? And if you really want to get Black voters, you really are not going to get us with Pete Buttigieg. He did not poll well with Black people at all because of his inaction in Indiana as mayor. Because of all the complaints from the Black community in Indiana that were not resolved, that he ignored, the racism that was going on in the police department, and he tried to get rid of the Black officer who reported it instead of getting rid of the white officers who were doing the racism. Oh no, Pete, I have not forgotten. I still remember. Good luck with that one, Dems. Good luck. All right, I'm going to pull into our second story. We need to talk about what happened with Professor Richard Wolff. So I'm going to start with the tweet first, and then I'm going to go into the video clip. So for those who don't know, Professor Richard Wolff, I think, in my opinion, if you've never heard him speak, you should absolutely hear him speak. I interviewed him a couple months ago, and I have to tell you, I learned more in that 1 hour just talking to Professor Richard Wolff than I have in some of my college classes. I'm just keeping it real. He really, really breaks it down when it comes to the economy, when we start talking about class, when we start talking about workers and workers' rights. And Professor Wolff was telling me about how things are in France because his family is originally from France. And he said that people in France say to him that they don't understand why the American people put up with this. They don't understand why we're not in the streets fighting every day, demanding that they give us health care, because that's what they did in France. Do you know the French people, they rose up. The yellow vest, they fought for those things. So I have a lot of respect for Professor Richard Wolff. Now, recently, he had a tweet and people came after him on Twitter for this. I'm going to share my screen. And then I'm going to tell you about his appearance on Jimmy Dore. All right. So Professor Richard Wolff said, it is not pro-anti-jab. I have to use that language on here, you guys. The issue is class struggle. Have employers' dictates/mandates become intolerable for employees? Record job quitting plus strikes plus refusal of mask jab mandates say yes. So he had this tweet posted on October 29th, and people came in, man. They came in on the comments. So let me go to, here's one of them that I saw. So this guy said the vast majority of regular people are fine with the mask and jab mandates, dude. Workers dying is not worker power. Let me go to some other ones. People were not nice. This guy says, Professor, you're aware of how long it takes to start organizing a strike action, right? Especially in some of these places that aren't unionized. This all started a year ago when people were laid off and the remaining workers were working longer hours and not being compensated. This guy come in and says the strikes have, or this woman comes in and says the strikes have nothing to do with mandates. And the only people quitting their jobs over mandates are troops and cops, and they're not workers. You should know better than this. As you guys can imagine, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. But I do want to make a correction here with this tweet. The woman that says the people who are quitting their jobs over mandates are troops and cops, they're not workers. That's actually not true. Let me stop sharing my screen because I want to show you something that I knew about a couple of days ago. It is not just cops and troops. Let me share my screen, because I think people really took what he said out of context. So this happened. 200 plus GE employees, union members stage walkout. This is in Schenectady on Friday, protesting the mandate. So this was in New York. So those aren't troops and those aren't cops. And it wasn't just in New York at this GE location. It also happened in South Carolina. It also happened in North Carolina. So what she said there in response to Professor Richard Wolff, that's actually not true. It's not just troops and cops. Okay, so let me pop out. Just wanted to put that there. Now, one thing I will say, yes, a lot of the people who are on strike because of wage disparities. They're on strike because lack of benefits. They've been overworked during the pandemic. Some of them are not getting breaks anymore. Some of them are having to work 7-day weeks, which is ridiculous. There was one, I believe it was when Frito-Lay, I believe this was their strike where people were only getting 4 hours in between shifts or something like that. So the workers were rising up because they were not being treated fairly. Okay. In Massachusetts, we have state troopers here who have been threatening to, and are still doing this, by the way, to leave as well. But that is specifically because of the mandate. So it's a little bit of both. I hear what he's saying. I hear what she's saying, but it is a little bit of both. Now, I'm going to play you that clip because Professor Wolff went on Jimmy Dore show. And after he went on Jimmy Dore show, he got attacked more. Him and Jimmy got attacked. So let me share my screen. This is funny too, because I think Jimmy is actually live now. So this is really funny. So this guy says, well, that sucks. Richard Wolff on Jimmy Dore show, attributing the strike wave to mandates. This is a wild misrepresentation of labor movements, goals, and those striking over low wages and terrible work conditions, playing to a narrative pushed by the reactionary right. So again, I just showed you guys and just told you guys about examples that is because of the mandate, just to be clear. So it's a little bit of both. I want to be clear here. Now, listen to this video. So this is the clip. One of the clips when he was on Jimmy Dore. So let me mute my mic.
We're seeing a strike wave, the likes of which we haven't seen for a long time. You know, Kellogg, Nabisco, John Deere, there's a whole bunch of them. And many that we don't even know about that are smaller and don't get coverage. But I want to make a point about that. It is getting more coverage than labor struggles used to get. Yes. It's almost as though people in the media all over the place smell or sense that something is going on. And so for me, when I watch the working people that I know saying, I don't want to be mandated, I understand that it's mostly not about the details of the science. They're not familiar with all of that. It's not about that they don't believe in vaccines. They've been vaccinating themselves and their children for a long time, and it's a normal procedure of life. but they don't want to be told again what they must do by pharmaceutical companies and government bureaucrats for whom they have lost what little respect they had. And so they're pushing back. And if they don't get a vaccine, I think that's a shame. I'm vaccinated. I'm glad I'm vaccinated. I understand your position about it as well. But I don't see this as an issue so much of science or of what the CDC says. This is a movement that the left should be in there saying, you're right to be angry at mandates. That didn't have to be done. There's 100 ways you can organize to talk about and to work out procedures, have your different scientific points of view presented in a rational way, and then make a democratic decision that allows people the personal and private decisions they want to make. The rest is a scare campaign, and I've seen them before, and the ultimate objective in my mind is to reestablish the ability of those who like to give other people mandates with a position to do so, and I don't think the left belongs there.
Okay. You just heard that clip. That was what he said. I saw all of that interview. People have already started exaggerating this. People are already saying, oh my God, Professor Wolff, he's one of them too now. He's anti-jab. Oh my gosh. And he's not. He's not. I want to be very clear here. He is not anti-jab. What he is saying is that the mandates are causing a problem for some workers. That is what he's saying. But it's gotten to the point now where we can't even have this conversation. We can't even talk about this without people screaming and yelling in the background, you're anti-jab. What is happening here? Meanwhile, pharmaceutical companies are sitting in the background and they're laughing at us all because they're still getting paid. What? We are yelling at each other. We are tearing each other apart. And the pharma companies, they're just sitting back making money. Let's be cautious of that. Let's be aware about that. We should be able to have these conversations. Now, he went on there, and of course, because he went on there, Jimmy Dore shared, hey, let me share this. Let me show you what people said, man. So Jimmy Dore shared this and said, the working class is waking up. The system must be changed. Speaking with Professor Richard Wolff. There's Professor. By the way, this is the first time I saw Professor Richard Wolff wearing a hat. And I forget what those kind of hats are called, but my dad used to have one of those hats when I was growing up. But I don't know what they're called, but they're really cool. Anyway, listen to what this person said. Unfettered free speech says, oh, by the way, so check that name and then listen to what they say. This is disgusting, anti-jab, capitalist phobia. But their name is unfettered free speech. What the hell is that? People are already trying to take this to an extreme. Already. You can't say anything. I'm telling, let me come out of here for a second. You can't say anything, God forbid, if you say anything about the mandate, any way, shape, or form, people just look at you as if, it's like that commercial where the cowboys were at the campfire and they're like, it says here, this stuff is made in New York City. And they all look over and go, New York City? That's what it feels like. Everybody's just looking at you like, what? Let's not take each other down over this. Let's not have ourselves, and I hate to say it, but we're getting divided over this right now. Another thing for them to divide us over, to keep us not paying attention to the class situation, workers being screwed over, the fact that we still don't have health insurance for everybody in this country. Let's find one more thing to divide them over. It's all a game. Now I want to show you another tweet, because I think people, they're just really taking this the wrong way. I don't know how many times, people have to say it over and over on their show that they are not against the jab, but they are against it being mandated. They'll say that over and over and over, and people will still say, you're anti-jab. So crying, I killed grandma said, Richard Wolff brought up an exceptionally good point last night on the Jimmy Dore show. We're freaking out about hospital overload, but we never talk about how Americans have lost 1/3 of all hospital beds since 1975, thanks to closures and consolidation. Plandemic. And that's a good point. Just something for you to think about. Just something for you to think about. Because I just feel like where are we going with this? So you can't say that in this country now? This is how I look at it. This is something that is new. The FDA, in my lifetime, I'm just going to talk about what I've seen in my lifetime. In my lifetime, I have seen the FDA approve medications, and then 5 years later, I see an ad or a disclaimer for that medication on TV that says, if you took such and such and da 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 da, and 2 years ago, between the years of 1992 and 1995, you may be eligible for compensation. What? I brought this up before on my show. I've seen that happen with birth control. Oh, let's talk about that. There was this birth control called the patch. It was literally a patch, just kind of like a big fat Band-Aid. You just take and go, you just put it on your arm. And it was supposed to be more helpful for people who forget to take pills. Like you might forget to take your birth control pill. Sometimes that can happen. But you wouldn't forget with the patch because you put it on once for that week and you can see it when it's on. So you know if you put it on or not. I was like, man, that sounds like a good idea. A couple of years later, I saw one of those disclaimers for the patch. If you use the patch between the years of, you may be eligible for compensation. Also saw this happen with the Noraplant. Noraplant was another method of birth control where this went inside of your arm. The way this worked, they put it inside your arm and it stays in your arm for 5 years. So then you really don't have to think about, did I take my birth control pill or not? That sucker's in there for 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, you go back to the doctor removes it. That's what was supposed to happen. A couple years later, saw a disclaimer for that. If you took Noraplant between the years of such and such and such and such, you may be eligible for compensation. And I saw it happen again with Yaz, another birth control method. It was mainly the newer ones. Now they have this thing called the Mirena, something like that, where they put it inside of you. I'm not going to get graphic here, but they put it inside of you and it's supposed to stay there in place. They're already having problems with that. So I use the birth control examples because those are the ones that I've saw be recalled in my lifetime. I remember when most of them came out, and I remember when they had the disclaimers for them years later. So that being said, for the people who say they don't feel that they should be forced to do it. They have a right to feel that way, you guys. With all the times that we see things being recalled, they have a right to feel that way. They have a right to be concerned because this is new. For the people who say that they want to feel, safe, so they think that everyone should be jabbed. I understand that point too. But for me, I don't think it's right for us to force somebody to do it. And I've been very vocal about this before. But see, I'll say that, and some people are like, you ain't touch it. Taking this way out of context. There's more that I wish I could say, but I can't say it on here because you guys know about the whole censorship issue. So that I can only say so much about that on here. I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat. I thought I saw some comments about, exactly. Echo J says, hey, Johnson & Johnson can't even make baby powder without killing people. Because when I heard them say that, oh, Johnson & Johnson also created a jab, I was like, really? I was like, have they handled that lawsuit that they have for the baby powder killing women? I don't know. So people have a right to be concerned. And it was just interesting to me that people were attacking Professor Richard Wolff. Here's somebody who is very well respected. Okay. Very busy on the left. Someone who's very well respected on the left. Let's be real. And people were leftists were coming at him. And I'm like, whoa. Okay, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Now we're going to cancel Professor Wolff too? They're turning us against each other, you guys. We can't let them do this. We can't. Guys, be sure to go ahead and hit that like button for me. That really helps me with the algorithm. Believe it or not, it does. So please feel free to do that as well. And don't forget to like, sub, and share to your friends and your fam. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. So, like I said, I wish there was more I could say about this, but you know how it is. Gamer for Life said, oh, whoops. Oh, sorry there, Laura. I meant to click on Gamer. Gamer for Life said, I'm not canceling Wolff, no way. I know. Atrice said the same parents who won't let their kids have anything they can't confirm 100% doesn't have peanuts in it are happy their kids can take a still experimental jab. The fuck? That's a good point. That's a good point, Atrice. So Laura said the list of lethal drugs okayed by the FDA is lengthy. I have a right to question. Y'all do. We all do. So my whole thing is I think it's ridiculous. I think we need to stop doing this to each other because as long as we're focusing on that, we're not focusing on the issues that we really need to be fighting for. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not trying to fight for any of these pharma companies because they sure as hell are not trying to fight for us. I'm going into my last story tonight. And this is a little bit of local news. Now, some of you have been asking me if I can cover some of the local news here in Massachusetts. I wish this thing would go away. Okay, let me disable this. All right, there we go. But one of our very own, let me see if I can get to the story here. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. So something huge has happened here in Massachusetts, particularly in Boston. Michelle Wu has won the Boston mayoral race. So she has officially run. For those of you who don't know, this is kind of a big deal here. She becomes the first woman, the first female mayor in Boston. Believe it or not, we've never had one. And also the first woman of color. Here's a little bit of local news for you. I'm going to go ahead and play her victory video. Let me mute my mic.
Start your vehicle while on the field to cool it down in the lot.
From every corner of our city, Boston has spoken. We are ready to meet this moment. We are ready to become a Boston for everyone. We're ready to be a Boston that doesn't push people out, but welcomes all who call our city home. We're ready to be a Boston where all can afford to stay and to thrive. And yes, Boston is ready to become a Green New Deal city. Today at the polls and over this last year and over generations in this city, Boston has come together to reshape what is possible. We are the city of the first public school in the country, the first public park, the first subway tunnel in the country. We're the city of revolution, civil rights, marriage equality. Boston has always been that city that punches above our weight, where our activism, our community, our joy radiates out into progress across the country. And today, together, we are marching into Boston's promise. We stand here in the South End on the edge of the Southwest Corridor. It is here where 52 years ago, there was a 12-lane highway planned. They said it was a done deal, that stopping it would be impossible. And for a while, that's how it seemed, until a coalition of activists from across our neighborhood stood up for people over highways. Some of them are here in this room, and they successfully fought for housing that was affordable, for an orange line instead of an interstate, for families then, and for families for generations to come. Our movement is a continuation of that activism and community, showing everyone what's possible when we all dig in and push for what we truly deserve. And what we deserve is a Boston where all of us are seen, heard, treasured, and valued. A Boston for everyone.
All right, I'm not going to play the whole video, but I do want to say these are the local elections I've been telling you guys about. Local elections that are important. Mayor, city council. We need to pay like more attention to those elections and not just, president, congressmen, senators, because these are the positions where we can really make change. Marty Walsh wasn't a perfect mayor, but I watched Marty Walsh when he came in. I watched him improve things that Mayor Menino, God rest his soul. Like there were things that Marty Walsh improved on that Mayor Menino would have never done because he didn't want it to happen. He wanted this to be a family city. He did not want it to be a city for young people. Then we got Marty Walsh came in, someone a bit younger, and was like, no, we need to give young people things to do here. Let's liven this place up. And then Marty Walsh went on to work for Joe Biden. No comment. But now we have Michelle Wu. And I thought it was interesting that she said that we need everyone to be seen and everyone to be heard. Because this is something, and this is a local issue, but if you live here, it is a problem here in Boston. We're people of color here. A lot of times we are marginalized and we are not seen. People physically see us, but they pretend like they don't. And that's interesting because today, Boston is a majority minority city. Most people don't know that. Most people think that Boston is a predominantly Irish American city. That used to be the case. That is not the case today. And you have to go beyond Boston proper to see it. You have to go to different neighborhoods in Boston that your tour bus and your tour guide are not going to take you to. So the fact that someone like Michelle Wu won, it is really surprising. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is surprising, but it's time. We need more progress in this city when it comes to racial equity, equality, and inclusion. We need to improve on that. And it's been a long time coming. So I told you guys, someone was asking me this a while back. Are you for Michelle or Andrea? And I was saying I was in between the two, and I didn't know, which way I really wanted to, I thought both of them were great. But I had a feeling that Michelle was going to be the one to bring it home. Now, do not go out and idolize her. Do not make her your hero. But let's sit back and see what she does. And when she does good work, I'm going to applaud her for it. And if she screws up, I'm going to critique her on it. But this is something that I never thought that I would see happen in Boston. But it's happened. Shout out to LT the Third, Sabs, Bad Faith, Mexican Steph, and Halper on the YouTube new view. Why you call her Mexican Steph? LT the Third, just call her Steph. Come on. Like, what? That's interesting. That's interesting. So yeah, we need some progress here. We need some more progress. And when it comes to racial issues, we need to, we're slowly getting there, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So that is what it is. LT the Third says Boston is terrible. Yes, been there. You really hit me tonight. You're really coming out. You're pulling out all the stops. Thanks so much, Xander. Keep it up. Love your channel. Thank you so much. I noticed a lot of new faces the past couple of days in the chat. Where Pilgrim said, what are the dynamics in Boston? How can pressure be exercised so that she does what she'll say, what she says she'll do? Well, I mean, Bostonians are pretty, we're pretty vocal. If we don't like something, we tell you. If we're not happy with what you're doing, we tell you. It's an interesting mix in this city. You have a lot of colleges. So you have a lot of college students. And I mean, you have a lot of colleges, you have a lot. So you see the difference come summer, because when all the college students go home, all of a sudden there's no traffic in the city. You get from point A to point B like that. The trains are pretty empty, like the subways are pretty empty. So there's a lot of people here that either go to university or work at university. And then there's healthcare is really big here. And then tech. I think we're number 2 for tech in the country now after Silicon Valley. So there's a lot of highly educated people here. And it didn't used to always be that way. There's a lot of PhDs and master's degrees. I have a master's degree. And along the way, I feel like a lot of the working class people that grew up in Boston have been forgotten about. And I feel like they've been pushed out. I've been here for 10 years and I've watched the city. I've watched gentrification really take hold of Boston, Cambridge, Somerville. This is extending, by the way. It's extending out to Medford, Malden, Revere. We're going up into Chelsea now. They're starting to gentrify Chelsea. I know some of you are like, I don't know where these places are, but okay. One day I should do a stream where I break down the neighborhoods. I think I did a vlog about this a long time ago, but I should pull up the map and I tell you guys about the different neighborhoods. But long story short, if you watch a movie about Boston, I can guarantee you it's probably wrong. Because in reference to the demographics, 9 times out of 10, it's wrong. If you watch The Town, the demographics of Boston today is not that way. If you go to South Boston today, which was known as an American or Irish American neighborhood, it is not that way anymore. Honey, I lived in South Boston at one point, okay? If that tells you anything. It's just been heavily gentrified. And so you see a lot of the families that grew up in Boston that kind of made Boston what it is today. A lot of these old school mom and pop places, those people have been pushed out. And that is why if you come to Boston as a tourist, it may be difficult for you to hear the Boston accent. If you really want to hear the Boston accent, you need to go to North Shore, which is north of Boston, or the South Shore, which is south of Boston. You want to go to like Quincy. You want to go to like Revere. You know, you got to go further away to hear that because those people were pushed out for the most part. Now, I just went on a long rant about Boston. Some of you are probably like, what is she talking about now? But yeah, it's very different. And I said, I've been here for 10 years now, and it's still very different from when I came here 10 years ago. I rarely hear the Boston accent in Boston. Rarely. Most of the people I'm around are not from here. So those things have changed. Leroy says bunch of Mark Wahlbergs walking around. Not anymore, but I did meet Mark Wahlberg's brother. Not the New Kids on the Block brother, the one that owns the chef. He owns Wahlburgers. I met him at Wahlburgers at the original one. Not on purpose. I tell you guys, whenever I meet people, like notable people or like celebrity or whatever, it's never on purpose. I just happen to be at that place at that time. But no, you don't really see that. It's like you have to go to like Quincy, Hingham, Weymouth. You have to go outside of Boston to kind of see that. So it's not like how it used to be. And some of that in a way is kind of sad because it's true. If you watch those movies like The Town, if you watch Good Will Hunting, what's the one where they were killing everybody and they had all the famous guys in it? Oh, The Departed. If you watch those movies, you'll think that, wow, that must be an interesting place to be. And then you come here and you're like, where's all those people, the characters that I saw in the movie? Like, no, it's not like that anymore. It has become a professional city. And with that, you lose some of the character. Just a reality. If you go to the North End in Boston, which is an Italian neighborhood, or well, was the Italian neighborhood, I should say, there's all these Italian restaurants, but you don't see any Italian families living there anymore. All of those apartments are too expensive. They're like $2,000 and up. So a lot of the people, my friend Elena lived there. A lot of the people that live like in the North End, they're like young professionals. But it used to be like families lived there. Not anymore. Not anymore. The restaurants are still there though, if you want to have some good food. But those people don't live there. Very different place. Very different. Even Roxbury's being gentrified. Roxbury, Dorchester, those were predominantly Black neighborhoods. Those are being gentrified now. So it's a lot of changes have come through. Gamer for Life said, I love the New York, Boston accents. Oh, really? Interesting. I don't even know what my accent is anymore. I've lived in so many different places. But I've been here so long. Sometimes if I've had a couple of drinks, my friends have told me, they were like, oh my God, you so sound like you're from Boston now. I don't know why that happens, but it does. But very different. And the slang here is a little bit different. Like vocabulary is different here too. When I first moved here, okay, guys, the rainbow, the little sprinkle things that you put on your ice cream, you get your ice cream cone and they put little sprinkles on there. What do you call those? I always called them sprinkles. When I moved here to Boston, people were calling them Jimmies. And I'm like, who is Jimmy? So that was a new thing for me. A different word for something that I was used to calling sprinkles. And then another thing that was weird too was like what I consider to be a milkshake. Up here, they're called fraps. And I found this out the hard way. I went to like this burger joint and I was like, can I get a burger and a milkshake? And he was like, we'll have milkshakes. And I was like, oh, a burger place that doesn't have milkshakes. And I saw they have fraps like up on the menu. So I was like, okay, well, I could get a frap, but do you have a frap that's not coffee based? Because in my mind, when I heard frap, I'm thinking frappuccino, like Starbucks, you know? That was back when I used to drink coffee. I was lit. But anyway, he told me that like there's no coffee in the frap. And I was like, okay, great. So he made the frap for me and then he gave it to me and I was like, this is a milkshake. He was like, no. He said a milkshake is milk with ice. And I was like, what? My mind was blown. So I was like, okay, if you go to McDonald's and you get a milkshake, what do you call that? It's like, I call it a milkshake. I'm like, okay, so that's a milkshake. And he's like, no, outside of McDonald's, here they are called fraps. Another funny thing, when you go to the grocery store, you get your little buggy, you know, little shopping cart. Some people call it a shopping cart. Some people call it a buggy. Up here, some people call it a carriage. And I'm like, a carriage? Just another different thing. If you ever use a water fountain, what do you guys call that? I call it a water fountain, right? Some people up here call it a bubbler. I'm like, a what? So there were some things that were just weird that I had to get used to. Oh, yes, Eric, thank you so much for bringing this up. Only in New England, rotaries, packy, bubblers, bangayui. I didn't know what any of these things meant. So for you who don't know, rotaries, I actually call them traffic circles. They're the circles on the road where you drive, and it's a circle that you drive around. It's a traffic circle. In New England, those are called rotaries. I was like, who? And then the packy. When people were saying, yeah, I'm going to go to the packy, I'm like, the what? That's the liquor store. Bubblers are the water fountains. Bangayui. J-Mo calls them roundabouts. Some people call them those too in reference to traffic circles and rotaries. So there were some things like when it came to the culture and the vocabulary, I would say it took me about a good year to get that down. And then the hardest part after that is learning how to pronounce these towns. Because there are towns here spelled Gloucester that are pronounced Gloucester. There's a city here called Worcester that is spelled Worcester, but it's Worcester. There's a town here called Peabody or Peabody. I said it wrong. I would pronounce it Peabody. It's Peabody. So there are some names up here that are just, if you're not used to it, it can be weird. And that's a quick way for people to know that you're not from here if you mispronounce those town names. Or if you call Tremont Street, Tremont Street. It's little things like that. Little things like that. It kind of reminds me when I lived in New York, and there's a street in New York. It's kind of near the, I want to say this is kind of near the financial district, kind of. And there's a street in New York, and it is spelled Houston Street. It is not pronounced Houston Street. It's pronounced Houston. That's another easy way for people to tell that you're not from there. So, yes, Harry, you're right. Those are the British pronunciations. That's what it is. I was like, what the? I was like, who came up with these names? Who came up with these names? All right. But that's enough about Boston. I don't even know. It's 8:30 now. I talked about Boston for like 15 minutes. I could do a whole separate stream for that, you guys. There's so much I could tell you. Like so much. I should tell you guys, I should do an episode about what it's like dating in Boston because that was an experience. I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore. You don't understand. You don't understand. That was an interesting thing. But guys, if you like what you saw, hit that like button. Give a big whoop, whoop. I will not be here tomorrow night. Just a reminder, I'll be at Fred Hampton Leftist podcast. We are doing the roundtable tomorrow. Roundtable is always a fun time, so join us over there at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be back on here Friday night doing my thing. So, you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.